yes. You gonna sing? Good morning, everybody. Yeah, let's all stand and sing, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you. We embrace, as always, all that you bring with you, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your differences, all that helps make you who you are, and that includes those in the room with us, whether you attend regularly or might be joining us for the first time or more recently, as well as the many of you who are live streaming with us this morning. We're so glad to have all of you as well. And some of you may not be live streaming with us. You may be watching us on YouTube a few days from now, which feels really weird to say, but welcome to you too. And I should also, I guess, start off by wishing you a happy Easter, or a happy, that also feels weird to say in a Unitarian church. I never quite know what it means. But happy Easter, if it's something that is meaningful to you. Happy Ishtar, if it's meaningful you just put it that way. Or just happy spring, because it finally feels like a spring day out here today. So anyway, we certainly appreciate the many myths of the renewal of life through the experience of springtime. So whatever this day means to you, happy whatever it is. And I'm not going to be speaking about it in my sermon. Okay. I also you're going to be hearing a little bit more about our generosity campaign during our story Time for All Ages, but this is the formal kickoff of this year's generosity campaign, the term we use for our stewardship campaign, in which we ask our members and friends to please consider making a pledge for the year to our congregation so we can have an idea of what we're going to be able to have to conduct the budget and the ministries of this church during the coming months. So we always appreciate the support and generosity that all of you have shown us over the years. And I've been here going on 16 years, I think. I think that's right. Maybe it'll be 15 in July. It's 15 or 16 in July. But anyway, you've always been incredibly generous, and we've never had enough. So no matter how much we get, it was never enough, right? That's the way it works. So I put in an earnest plea right now for you to be as generous as you please can. Maybe we will one day have enough, but I think part of that is always having desires and expectations beyond our reach, which as a church we should. So thank you all so much for the support you show us, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this today and in the coming weeks as our stewardship campaign continues. So I think that's all the announcements I have for this service, so why don't we take a few moments to greet one another this morning. All right, and more time as always to visit with one another following our service. But we are during our social hour, but we're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
For this morning's opening words are by Melody Beatty. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend.
Okay, let's sing together. We'll build a lab.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And I did not get any specific requests from our congregation this week, but obviously there's a lot of stress and concern in the world beyond our sanctuary walls to have us all kind of stressed out. So we kindle a candle in general for all of the stress and anxiety that so many of us are feeling these days because of what's going on in our country and the world, including, as we have been specifically lighting candles for some time now, the people of Ukraine, Russia, people of Israel, Palestine, Iran, Darfur, South Sudan, all the places in the world that are experiencing violence and war and lots of other tragedies and horrors, as well as for the frightened immigrants in our country that are dealing with a lot of insecurity, fear, and absolute injustice on our own U.S. streets. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud, those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Thank you, Jackie. I was picturing all sorts of beautiful choreography as you played. Well, before I share this morning's Time for All Ages story, I want to tell you something about why I'm a member of this church. When I was growing up, I heard stories about Jesus in a Presbyterian church. Later, there was a time in my life when I really didn't connect with church at all. The first time I heard the words of our chalice lighting, about 6.5 years ago, pre-pandemic, right? PP. Specifically the part about casting a healthy shadow of doubt where truth has been found. I realized that I didn't have to leave all my old stories behind. Instead, I could see them in a new light. At this church, we have a welcoming community where there is room for a lot of perspectives, and where we practice love and generosity together. Today, as we welcome new members and begin our April Generosity campaign, we're reminded that our community is always being shaped by the stories we carry and the way we care for one another. And now a story that's adapted from Jesus the Carpenter's Son, written in 1945. Jesus was a great teacher who believed that we should care for the poor and forgive people who hurt us. In his lifetime, Jesus influenced many people to love one another as they loved God. 12 of these people were called the disciples of Jesus, and they traveled with him and listened to him preach day after day. In Jesus' time, neither the Roman leaders nor the Jewish leaders liked him very much. They were afraid he would lead a rebellion and upset the way things were. As Jesus became more popular, the leaders planned to kill him. The night before Jesus died, he was celebrating the Jewish holiday of Passover. He celebrated at a Seder with the 12 disciples. The next day, Jesus was arrested, and then he was killed. And what happened after Jesus died began the religion we know as Christianity. Many Christians believe that after Jesus was killed, he rose from the dead and went to heaven. Many Unitarian Universalists see this story in a different light. Here's how a religious educator named Sophia Foss explained it. The people who followed Jesus were brokenhearted after he died. They struggled to understand why God had allowed their teacher to be killed. Surely someone so connected to God, so overflowing in goodness, did not deserve to be punished like a criminal. As these men and women gathered day after day in each other's homes, they began to recall the wonderful experiences they had with Jesus. They told one another of times when Jesus was wise and times when Jesus was kind. The very tone of Jesus' voice and the look on his face would come back to them so vividly that it seemed sometimes as though Jesus were right there with them. Some of the people had dreams in which Jesus seemed so real that the dreamers could not tell whether they had been asleep or awake when they saw him and talked with him. They said they saw him rise from the dead and come out of his coffin. They said they saw Jesus rise up from the earth, higher and higher, until he disappeared entirely. They believed he had gone to heaven to be with God. People who had these experiences believed that Jesus was different from other people. Some believed that Jesus was so holy and great that he would come back to earth and save the world. That is one reason Christians call Jesus the Savior. But Jesus did not come back. It has been over 2,000 years and Jesus has still not come back. Christians still hope he will come back again. Others, including Unitarian Universalists, believe that this Jesus will never again live on earth. His body is not coming back, but his spirit never needs to die. His spirit is in his words and deeds, which still give us wisdom today. For example, when he was alive, Jesus taught the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, where he said that people who are poor, hurt, and struggling are loved by God, and therefore we must love them too. When someone's physical body dies, the people around them who loved and valued them will keep their memory alive, just like the followers of Jesus who have remembered his teachings and his spirit long after his death. And back to generosity. If after this first service you would like to help me hide Easter eggs in the backyard for our second service Children's Chapel, just meet me at the back of the Friendship Hall. Thank you and happy Easter.
This morning's meditation are words from Thomas Merton. One of the most important and neglected elements in the beginning of the interior life is the ability to respond to reality, to see the value and the beauty in ordinary things, to come alive to the splendor that is all around us.
If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me. And I know I laughed when you left, but now I know I only hurt myself. Baby, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me. I give you jewelry and money too, and that ain't all I'm about to do. Oh, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you both so much. We have traditionally, before I came to this church so many years ago even, playfully called the sermon on the day of our stewardship kickoff as the Sermon on the Amount. And to my knowledge, we never actually said, here is the amount that we want, but it's been kind of fun. Today's sermon's I'm not really won't mention the amount, or really even, I think, much about stewardship at all. But it answers the question of why I remain a Unitarian and what it means to me, which I think is an appropriate sermon for a day like this. So, and I want to begin by talking about just how minuscule our religion is. It's so minuscule, in fact, I think that it is a wonder that anyone even knows it exists. It's estimated that there are roughly 800,000 Unitarians worldwide, although that number could be a little higher or more likely a lot lower. 800,000 is less than 0.01% of the global population. In other words, we're mostly not here. Pushing its numbers as generously as possible to include 26 emerging congregations, 34 covenanting communities, and 21 international congregations and communities, the Unitarian Universalist Association in the U.S. reports having just over 1,000 congregations and around 150,000 individual members. Comparatively, there are more than 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, 53 million of them here in the U.S., making up almost 18% of the global population and 19% of Americans. And there are over 17 million Southern Baptists, the largest Protestant denomination in the world. Most of them, about 13 million, are here in the U.S., accounting for about 4% of its total population. And if you wish to consider another obscure and relatively small religion, there are almost as many Mormons, Latter-day Saints as they prefer these days, in the world as there are Southern Baptists, with 7 million of them in the U.S., representing about 2% of the country's adult population, compared to Unitarianism's measly 0.01% worldwide. So much for Thomas Jefferson's 1822 prediction that there is not a young man now living in the U.S. who will not die a Unitarian. In light of our dismal numbers, I must conclude the main reason I became a Unitarian was dumb luck. Although our religion, as Jefferson believed, ought to be America's religion, and the religion of humanity for that matter, at almost 0%, we remain so tiny that the chance of anyone even learning of our existence, including those who share our values, is a fat chance. A short time ago, for example, I had to establish care with a new doctor who happens to be from Romania, which was formerly the part of Hungary where the Unitarian religion was formally founded in the 16th century, where the Hungarian Unitarian Church remains headquartered today, and where, of course, our partner church in Felshorokos, Romania, is located. But upon hearing that I'm a Unitarian minister, my Romanian doctor, who grew up there, said he'd never heard of our religion before, as intrigued as he was by it. Ours is a needle in the haystack of religions that most people in the world don't even know to look for. To make matters worse, many who claim to be Unitarians today probably aren't. They may have joined Unitarian congregations and fellowships, but the definition of our liberal religion, as if it weren't already obscure enough, has become increasingly muddled over time, making it the perfect religious canvas upon which to project one's own religious ideals and yearnings, rather than recognizing it for what it is, or at least once was, supposed to be about. I was first introduced to Unitarianism in my 20s by a co-worker familiar enough with it and me to recommend that I try it. I soon attended a summer service at Thomas Jefferson Unitarian Church in Louisville, Kentucky, during which somebody was dullishly speaking about flower arranging. After that, I had no interest in returning. Until Peggy and I got married in 1988. As Southern Baptist refugees, we missed having a church community, but did not want the superstition or dogmatism that goes along with it. So I recommended we try the Unitarian Church, saying something to the effect that they are supposed to be a church community without any creeds. And that's about all I knew about Unitarian Universalism at that time. And since there was no internet nor search engines in those days, the best way to learn more about it was give it a try. And we did, which led to a much slower process of becoming what I consider Unitarians in the historic sense of this term. In short, I had joined the Unitarian religion, but I was still a long way from becoming a Unitarian. It's true that the church we joined was a community, and it did not have any creeds, but there is a lot more to Unitarianism than what it is not. To compound the problem of trying to understand what it is about, in 1961, the American Unitarian Association merged with the Universalist Church of America, forming an undefined hybrid religion that had never existed before, which is why to this day, researchers refer to Unitarian Universalism as an NRM, a new religious movement, even though the two denominations had existed separately for centuries. They had considered forming such an association for over a century before it actually happened, but were reluctant to do so because of what were insurmountable theological and class differences. The rather unexpected and I believe ill-considered merger left these differences unresolved and left the relatively few members that they did have wondering what a Unitarian Universalist is supposed to be about. The newly formed association didn't talk much about its namesake's roots for fear of raising the old divisions that had long prevented such a merger. Right? These are two religions with completely different histories and values in some cases, and beliefs and ideas. So instead, it forged ahead by adding 6 defining principles to its new bylaws, which became 7 principles in 1985. They also immediately began sending out surveys asking, who are we? What are we about? They still needed to decide because they didn't know. The answers they received have become increasingly uncertain over the decades because they keep asking the question now. And their principles, meaningful as they may be for some, are shallow compared to the rich history and theological depth of both these once independent and age-old religions. Unitarian Universalism, the new religious movement formed in 1961, has increasingly struggled to define what it is about, transforming itself into a blank canvas upon which a variety of people can project their personal religious and pseudo-religious ideas and beliefs. I sometimes call it the everything bagel of religions. And often hear outsiders ask, isn't that the religion that believes everything? This notion has resulted most recently in its capture by ideological extremists and opportunists who understand and care so little about its historic values and principles that they have abandoned even its 7 principles, along with its fair and democratic election processes, and have excommunicated more ministers in the past 6 years, including me, for saying things they disagree with than they had disfellowshipped during the previous 60 years. Its new leaders even associate both of these venerable traditions, which were among the most vocal and active within the abolitionist movement, with white supremacy. Whatever this NRM has become, it does not represent Unitarianism or Universalism anymore, if it ever did. As many of you know, I recently tried to found and shape a new association for the purpose of reconnecting us with our historic roots and values, the North American Unitarian Association, NAUA. Sadly, it was a fool's errand, for there are too many among us who prefer the shallow religion based on a few simple creed-like statements, 7 principles that were written by the Unitarian Universalist Association in 1985, rather than the deeper meaning of a liberal religious heritage that formally dates back to the Renaissance. In his 2-volume work, A History of Unitarianism, written in 1945, Unitarian minister and scholar Earl Morris Wilbur summarized Unitarianism's fundamental principles as freedom, reason, and tolerance. These, he says, have evolved in its history and been ever increasingly realized as the necessary conditions of the fullest development of religious thought and life. Wilbur died 5 years before the establishment of the Unitarian Universalist Association, upon which it is said that a mound of dirt mysteriously appeared in front of his tombstone, indicating that he may have turned over in his grave. I made that part up. That's as close as we're going to get to a resurrection story on Easter. Human dignity maintained through freedom, reason, and tolerance were the simple values claimed by NAUA, which I insisted remain no more than a service and support organization, not a denomination, and not a place for our members to store their personal versions of the 10 Commandments, the 4 Noble Truths, the 5 Pillars, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or what have you. Whatever idolatrous list they wanted us to codify for them. As autonomous individuals and congregations, it was up to them to articulate their own principles and encode them wherever they wished, hopefully upon their own hearts, which is the only place that really matters. But as one of them complained, I just want NAUA to become like the UUA before it went crazy. A sentiment I now realize is endemic among those claiming to be Unitarians and UUs. And I won't go into the ugly details, but I left NAUA abruptly after a coup had been orchestrated by a couple or more board members who, as one of them said, did not sign up for this, and seems to have wanted to turn NAUA into what the UUA was before it went crazy. My only regret is that my name will be forever associated as its founder, because I don't wish to be remembered for establishing another shallow, cultish religious association. That's not what I started. In fact, its rogue board began talking about adopting the 7 principles within the very same week of my resignation, making it the opposite of the association I, along with others, had helped form. So I may have initially become a Unitarian because of dumb luck. But in light of everything I've just shared, why on earth do I remain a Unitarian? I think it's because I do value its deep roots, its history, and its perennial values more than most anything else in my life. No matter how flawed and distorted its institutions have become, no matter how imperfectly we as individuals have been able to live up to its values and ideals, Unitarianism remains worthy of my devotion and my highest aspirations. When we are able to get past the institutional trappings and the hypocritical behavior of some of its proponents and adherents, I still believe Unitarianism offers humanity the best approach for creating a far more humane and peaceful world, and that it is the best path for us to live as individuals. As much as I do cherish reason, freedom, and tolerance, I consider Unitarianism's devotion to human dignity to be its most fundamental principle upon which everything else rests. Unitarianism may have been formally founded in the 16th century in Transylvania, when it became the religion of King John Sigismund Zapolya, but the idea has literally been around since Christ, or more precisely, since historical Jesus. His original followers were Jews who may have revered him as a great rabbi, maybe even considered him their Messiah, but never as a God, which would have been anathema to any Jew, including to Jesus himself. It wasn't until Christianity became the official religion of Rome, of a non-Jewish population, almost 3 centuries after his crucifixion, that they, having a tradition of deifying human beings, began calling him God or considering him God. Those who argued ex os eschin, that God is one, the one Jesus worshipped, were, for this very reason, theologically Unitarian. But in 325 CE, Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea to declare that the Father and Son were one in order to settle the growing debate once and for all. 50 years later, the Council of Constantinople added the Holy Spirit to the recipe, and the Trinitarian doctrine was officially born. Right, so for the record, Trinitarianism was born 4 centuries after Jesus' life and death in reaction against Unitarianism, not the other way around. We were here first. It wasn't called Unitarianism back then, but that's what it was. And inherent within it was the idea that Jesus was a human being. Theologians refer to this as a low, or as I prefer, a humanistic Christology. Right? A high Christology is how much you think of Jesus as a deity, and a low Christology is how much you think of him as a human. Right? So thinking him as purely human is about as low as it goes. That's us Unitarians. Jesus was considered a human being who uplifted other human beings, who raised up other human beings, especially those who had been demonized and dehumanized. So from its very inception, the humanistic theology emphasized the inherent worth and dignity of every person, the idea that still most defines what it means to be liberal in religion or anything else. After the end of the Dark Ages, with the invention of the printing press and its democratization of the Bible, right, we no longer had to trust those who could read it to tell us what it said, could read it for ourselves. It became apparent to some that the revered book contained no mention of the Trinity in it. Theologian Michael Servetus soon wrote a book of his own about this discovery, was burned at the stake for it, and today remains known as the father of Unitarianism. Little more than a decade later, King Sigismund made Unitarianism his religion, not because of its theology, but because it preached tolerance for the people of all faiths. It was Sigismund who then issued the first religious toleration law in human history, the Edict of Torda, in 1568, allowing people in his kingdom to practice whatever religion they chose without fear of persecution or punishment. Sigismund chose Unitarianism and issued the edict because he knew that peace could not be otherwise maintained in his unusually diverse kingdom. As people with a strong humanistic bent, Unitarians are inclined to value human reason and rely upon human agency. Right? If you value humans, you value reason, and you value agency. And this results in great respect for logic and science. And this is why when our particular church was founded in 1887, its bylaws stated that the authority of its belief is reason. The method of finding its beliefs is scientific. Its aim is to crush superstition and establish the facts of religion. It's why my famous predecessor here, Reverend John Dietrich, called the term Unitarianism incidental. Since a disbelief in Trinitarian formula, he says, has little to do with what our religion is really about. Rather, they were Unitarians and rejected the dogma of the Trinity, he said, because they were liberals and placed themselves under the command of reason and accepted the modern discoveries of science and history. It's also why, as you heard a couple of weeks ago, he praised the great 19th century orator and atheist Robert Ingersoll as the most ardent champion of freedom against superstition. But the more fundamental point of reason is not using it to advance science or to end superstition. I believe this is inconsequential to its role in Unitarianism. It is rather to simply let others think for themselves. It is to accept in the name of human dignity and agency that humankind is a rational animal and that every individual, therefore, ought to be free to use reason and draw their own conclusions without the need for the church or the state to issue creeds and decrees telling them what they can and can't believe. Individual freedom is at the heart of our devotion to reason. So these three core values, freedom, which refers to the freedom to choose, speak, and think for oneself and to fully participate in society without prejudice. Reason, which refers to thinking well, but more importantly to respecting the ability of others to reason for themselves. And tolerance, which requires us, even when we do disagree, to not only live and let live, but to protect the freedoms, rights, and dignity of those we disagree with. This is why I consider this Unitarian trinity of values, reason, freedom, and tolerance, to be the social technologies necessary to advance our greater goal of establishing and maintaining human dignity. That's what it takes. How does somebody have dignity? I'm so sorry. Forgot to put my phone on silence. Do that now. And it is really what Unitarianism means to me, and why I remain a Unitarian. Because of its humanistic ethic, which is my ethic. It is fundamental to who I am. Sometimes I feel like I am a Unitarian dinosaur, part of a religion that is rapidly going extinct. I feel fortunate to be the minister of such a historic church, especially one that has embraced human dignity from its inception, along with these principles of freedom, reason, and tolerance that are necessary to foster that dignity. But during my 15 years, I have encountered plenty whom I believe, as Dietrich also put it, became identified with Unitarianism by some mistake. Maybe they were born into it and consider Unitarianism a birthright, but we don't accept infant membership any more than we accept infant baptism. Unitarianism is a religion of adults who understand what it's about and intentionally choose it for themselves. So great is our historic respect for individual freedom of choice. Others may think they are Unitarians because it allows them to believe whatever they want. This is true. We do. But Unitarianism is less about what you believe as an individual and far more about how you treat those who believe differently than you. That's what makes us a Unitarian. Not that we can believe whatever the heck we want, but how we treat one another, those who may believe differently than ourselves. Merely being born into it, merely believing whatever you want, merely signing our membership book, as I did so long ago, doesn't make one a Unitarian. Some who have may be here by mistake. But as I said at the start, for me, joining the Unitarian Church was only the beginning of a much longer process of becoming a Unitarian. So even if you might be here by mistake, stick around. It may just be your dumb luck that you'll become a Unitarian yet. That's what happened in my case. The more I learned about, and the more I learn about and come to understand this peculiar religion, the more I realize how perfectly it reflects my greatest values and my highest aspirations. And the more I've come to see that I really am a Unitarian. And maybe deep down I always have been. And even if I am a Unitarian dinosaur, so be it, because I would rather go extinct with a fading truth that honors human dignity than join the crowd that has forgotten it. Thank you. Thank you.
Please join me in standing, saying there is more love somewhere.
There is more love somewhere.
Because one believes in oneself, one doesn't try to convince others. Because one is content with oneself, one doesn't need others' approval. Because one accepts oneself, the whole world accepts yourself. Lao Tzu. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.
so sore. Like feeling really good for like really much. Like I magically felt really good like the day before my recital and stuff. I've been on a really good run. And I think
Now your body's like paying for kind of the intensity.
I mean, I thought, I had like a breakthrough with my stretches and like my exercise and everything, but I think now I've broken through to the next level. So, I was in a good period. I was in a good place for a while, and now I'm starting to turn more muscles and stuff.
And then Madeline's not here to stretch it out.
Yeah, no, she recommended some people to me because I need some people.